Have you ever heard the saying, you've got to spend money to make money? Well, imagine that, but instead of spending money, it's making games. And instead of making money, it's making games. Basically, borrow the vague sentence structure, but completely swap out the meaning. I probably should have picked a better sentence. The point is that if you want to make games, you just have to kind of do it. It's very easy to get stuck thinking about making games or thinking about how you would approach making a game, but you ultimately just have to get into it. You'll make far more progress starting with the main menu and realizing huge structural fault and rewriting an hour's work than you would spend 3 hours thinking intently about the best way to go about things, and personally I'd enjoy the first one way more. So here are my 4 ways to force yourself to just make the fucking game. Number 1, and probably the way that I would most recommend to anyone, is to try a game jam. The thing to remember about this is that your goal and desired outcome from the game jam is kind of dependent on your skill level. Now, if you've got experience making games or using game-related tools, then your goal is to make a tiny little game that you can show off and play with. If you have no idea what the hell to do, which is understandable because everything's confusing, your goal is actually just to get yourself acquainted with the engine under a bit of pressure. That's not to say that you shouldn't try to make a game, but don't sweat it too much if you don't get a finished product. Besides, if a game jam can take you from having never made anything to having made a half-finished Frankenstein's monster of a main menu, then that is a huge improvement and you're doing really well. Number 2 is also pretty good, which is just to come up with an idea for a game that you could complete in a really small amount of time. Just try it and see how it goes. You got creativity? Come up with a cool game? Just try it. If you get a finished game, that is awesome, and you did it, and you're a hero, and I love you. If you didn't, that's fine, but now you can learn from your mistakes, figure out why it didn't work, and I still love you because you're still watching this lovely YouTube video. A common reason for not being able to start is not understanding how pieces of an engine fit together, and definitely not being able to apply them to abstract concepts like a level or a player character. This is the kind of thinking that really, genuinely just requires practice. Who cares if your first attempt involves making the player and the floor permanently and fundamentally inseparable? You've successfully investigated one way in which you probably shouldn't program things in the future, and you get to thinking about better ways to structure things until you eventually land upon one that feels right. And even if you can't get that far, it's worth asking questions on Reddit, community forums, or Discord servers. People will help you, and after a little while, you won't even need their help anymore. Plus, especially if you ask the question on a public forum, people from the future will be able to read and learn from your confusion. Now, number 3 is for if you can't come up with an idea, that's for a game that's within a reasonable scope. There is no shame in recreating an existing game like Pong or Breakout or Space Invaders, or something super simple that you can then move on to tweak a little bit. If you don't like recreating games because that's kind of boring, because it is, you can add a little creative adjustments. So, for instance, add a triple shot power-up to Space Invaders. Just try it, it shouldn't be that difficult, and then it's not Space Invaders anymore, technically. Or you can add 4-directional movement to Breakout. It's questionably useful, but it's probably a really useful exercise in a beginner's case. As I said, this isn't the most interesting way to go about things, so I guess you don't have to do it if you think a motivation is going to cause you problems. Number 4 is for actually disciplined people, so that automatically excludes myself since I have the willpower of a wet sponge. If you seriously feel like you want to accomplish something, setting and sticking to a schedule makes a big difference. Bonus points if you can tie it to an existing part of your routine, for instance get in half an hour before work, or spend a little time before brushing your teeth reading through some educational materials, something like that. Especially if you're not under any time pressure, and if you're not feeling particularly impatient, patience being an invaluable skill to hone for game development, you can just set yourself some time to learn. Read tutorials, watch videos, look over sample code, mess around in the engine of your choice, and make it your business to make the in-game screen look as horrible and garish as possible. Over time, you will improve. If you're actually making an effort to learn to make those games, you will improve. I'm not trying to say that if you aren't improving, you just aren't putting enough effort. I'm saying that you are improving. Even if you think you aren't, you're probably just wrong. You probably are just improving. Keep grinding your face against the wall, and eventually you'll get to a position where it gets easier and easier to learn new things about the engine of your choosing. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos like this that I actually didn't plan whatsoever. I just kind of started typing, that a bunch of words came out, and I said the words later on, like 2 weeks later, actually. Why am I so lazy? What was the end? How do I end this sentence? I forgot the grammar. Goodbye.